This time we'll start talking about the westward expansion of the United States, 1783 1910. In 1783, the newly formed United States of America was a small nation consisting of just 13 former colonies clustered around the Atlantic seaboard and extending no further west than the Mississippi River. During the following century, the young country would expand inexorably westward across the North American continent, vastly increasing its territory, population, and economic might. Initially, expansion was limited by French possession of lands beyond the Mississippi. However, this obstacle was removed in 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase, the acquisition by the USA of a great swath of the Midwest from the French Emperor Napoleon. This vast territory consisted of around 530 million acres was bought for just $15 million or 3 cents per acre. Gradually, transcontinental USA began to take this shape as more territories were acquired through a combination of purchase, diplomacy, and military conquest. West Florida was annexed from Spain in 1813. In 1819, Spain also ceded East Florida and all its lands in the Northwest, including the present day states of Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. Later in the 1830s and 1840s, the USA won large territories in the Southwest from Mexico, including Texas and California. Finally, in 1867, the US government purchased Alaska from Russia. The Pathfinders. The Pathfinders. Before these newly acquired territories could be settled, they needed to be explored and mapped. In 1804, an expedition was commissioned by President Thomas Jefferson to explore the western regions of the continent. The expedition, headed by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, lasted for 2.5 years and covered around 8,000 miles. Lewis and Clark established the route between the Mississippi River and the West Coast and brought back encouraging news about the natural wealth of the West, inspiring a new era of exploration. Government sponsored expeditions led by Cibullion Pike, 1804 1807, and Stephen Long, 1817 1823, explored Colorado and New Mexico and the lands near the Red and Arkansas rivers. Traders and fur trappers such as Jedediah Smith opened up the Santa Fe Trail between Missouri and New Mexico in 1821. And from about 1810, hunters and trappers known as mountain men explored the Rockies. This golden age of exploration produced a number of famous frontiersmen whose daring feats became the stuff of legend. They included David Crockett, renowned for his bear hunting and his death in defense of Texan independence at the Battle of the Alamo, James Bowie, pioneer, explorer, and inventor of the Bowie knife, and Kit Carson, mountain man, army scout, and buffalo hunter. The Native Americans. The westward expansion of the USA came at a terrible cost to the native inhabitants of the continent. As the pioneers blazed their trails westward, they ruthlessly occupied Native American lands. The pioneers were given military assistance in this endeavor by federal troops who fought many battles against the natives in the so called Indian Wars. White settlers were also responsible for the indiscriminate slaughter of huge numbers of buffalo, the main food source of the Plains people. Many native peoples, including the Cherokee, Delaware, and Wichita, were forcibly removed from their ancestral homelands and placed on reservations to make way for settlers. Leave your likes, people. Leave your likes. Leave your likes there. Pioneers and settlers. Pioneers and settlers. The Americans who migrated west into the newly explored territories did so for a variety of reasons. Some, living in the crowded cities of the Northeast, were attracted by tales of the vast open spaces of the interior, with its fertile soil and abundant game. Others, such as the Mormons who settled Utah, came to escape religious persecution. Some had fled the great southern plantations in desperation, displaced by the slave labor forces purchased by their owners. Many came out of a sense of manifest destiny. I believe that America was destined by God and history to expand across the entire continent. The government added a further incentive to settle less by offering free land so long as it was occupied and farmed. From 1843, pioneers set off each spring long wagon trains along the Oregon Trail, yeah, which stretched 3,500 kilometers from Missouri to the Pacific coast. The steady flow of migrants became a torrent after the discovery of gold in California in 1848. Over 100,000 49ers swept into California, infected with gold fever and hoping to strike it rich. Few found gold, but many ended up settling there as farmers and traders. Thank you for those likes and hearts. While the Oregon Trail, hi, yes, while the Oregon Trail and the gold rush helped develop the far west during the 1840s, much of the interior of the West remained unsettled during this period. It was not until the 1860s that ranchers and farmers began to occupy the Great Plains west of the Mississippi. This settlement was greatly helped in that decade by the arrival of the railroads and telegraphic communication. By the early 20th century, the USA had grown into a major industrial nation. Oh, yeah, that fascinated me, man. Growth nation spanning the entire width of the North American continent. It had settled a territory almost the size of Europe, despite formidable physical and geographical challenges. And it had done so largely through the adventurousness and tenacity of its pioneering people. Yeah. Look at this beautiful timeline. What do we have here? This is for your summary, people, so you can write this down on your school exams. 1803, France sells its North American territory to the USA in the Louisiana Purchase. 1804, 1806, Lewis and Clark expedition charts an overland route went to the Pacific. 1843, the settlement of Oregon begins with the establishment of the Oregon Trail. 1848, 1849, the discovery of gold. Gold, I like this. In California sparked the gold rush. 1861, the first transcontinental telegraph line is completed. 1862, the Homestead Act grants free family farms to settlers. Wow! Free family farms to settlers. Thanks to the Homestead Act. That's why I have now my own piece of land there. 1869, the Transcontinental Railroad is completed. Hi, EZS. Hi, man. Well, now it's time to read another conspiracy theory. So give me just 1 second to change books. Okay, now let's go with this book. This book is called Conspiracies. Okay, let's go with my favorite conspiracy. Flat Earth. Flat Earth. Let's take a look. Let's take a read to this. Okay. After persisting as a fringe movement for decades, the belief that Earth is actually flat and not a globe, and that the entire scientific establishment is lying to all of us, suddenly experienced a massive spike in popularity in early 2015. What drove this surge isn't clear. It's certainly not anything that could be construed as a new scientific discovery. Since the scientific community has known for 2,500 years that the world is round, it's far more likely that it's a combination of social media, general distrust in institutions, and the decline of critical thinking in Western society that's caused a not small number of people to think that the earth is flat. And yet, they do. The new flat earth movement has drawn tens of thousands of people into various Facebook groups, spawned countless popular YouTube videos and debates, got the eye of minor celebrities, and even forced popular science communicators to respond to it. Surveys back up this disturbing trend. February 2018 survey from YouGov asked 8,200 Americans if they believe that the world is round or flat, and only 80% answered that they had never believed the earth wasn't round. It also showed that 2% of Americans believe with no doubt that the earth is flat. And as many as 1/3 of those aged 18 to 24 either harbor some doubt that the earth is round or weren't sure either way. The evidence for it depends on scientific concepts that are either willfully misunderstood or simply made up. Willfully. When cornered, many flat earthers fall back on insults, generic arguments to do your own research or change the subject. But is there any evidence? Or is it the flat earth movement merely one designed to decentralize knowledge and put very basic scientific concepts such as what the earth looks like into the hands of the people who recently had knowledge handed down to them from on high? What does a flat earth look like? So, contrary to popular misconception, neither ancient people nor those living afterwards believed the air was flat. While many ancient societies did depict the planet as a flat and surrounded by water, by the 15th by the 5th century BC, the Greeks had carried out rudimentary experiments proving that the earth was a globe, though they didn't know how big it was. The great Pythagoras was involved in some of the earliest efforts to prove the earth was round. Likewise, Aristotle noted that various signs of a spherical Earth, such as how ships disappear over the horizon and the position of the stars moving, show not only that the Earth is circular in shape, but also that it is a sphere of no great size. For otherwise, the effect of so slight a change of place would not be so quickly apparent. Not did Christopher Columbus go sailing the ocean blue to prove that the earth was round. That bit of that bit of lore came from a story by Washington Irving. And Galileo wasn't sent to his death for disputing the Catholic Church's belief in a flat earth, as Thomas Jefferson wrongly wrote a century earlier. Flat Earth mythos was mostly the stuff of arguments between various religious factions until the late 1800s, when a book called Cetetic Astronomy, The Earth Not a Globe, articulated the claim that the planet was a flat disk surrounded by ice walls, with hell itself lying beyond those icy cliffs. That book, written by Samuel Rowbotham under the pseudonym Parallax, took off in certain English circles and spawned a debating society and several well-known attempts by believers to prove the flatness of the earth. Eventually, the Cetetic movement became more about oppositions to established science in general, and it died out after World War I died out. But its basic tenets were picked up by an English sign painter in the 1950s who founded the International Flat Earth Research Society based on the Cetetic movement, though not sharing much of its actual beliefs. That group eventually turned into a purely non-scientific Christian fundamentalist conspiracy mongering group, and then into an online-only forum dedicated to conspiracy theories, which now has about 11,000 members and doesn't talk much about flat Earth. Here we have a picture, square and stationary Earth. There's a picture of the flat Earth. It says here, a flat Earth map drawn by Orlando Ferguson in 1893. It shows the Antarctic as a wall of ice surrounding the edge of the world. Here we have another picture. Here it says, contrary to popular belief in the Middle Ages, most people believe the earth to be round. This image from a 14th century manuscript depicts a spherical earth. Look at this spherical earth from the 14th century. And here, the front cover of Cetetic Astronomy, written by the Flat Earth campaigner Samuel Rowbotham, who went by the pseudonym Parallax. Parallax. By Parallax le dicen. What do flat earthers believe? Let's get into the minds of these fellas right here. It says the basics of flat earth belief vary, but generally you're likely to find most believers think the earth is some kind of flat disk and that the scientific establishment has lied to us about our senses really tells us. Many flat earth debates become entangled in a minute aspects of science and weather that most people don't understand. The depth and detail of these discussions ends up lending credence to what they discuss, as if any scientific theory that wasn't true simply couldn't have as much sheer material to debate. Part of this debate revolves around the misuse of scientific jargon, deploying concepts like crepuscular rays, sunbeams shining through clouds, proving that the sun must be much closer to the earth, and gyroscopic attitude indications on planes staying horizontal during flights. These are real things, but are totally misinterpreted. Flat Earth believers by flat Earth believers. To explain away the vast amount of pictures of Earth as a globe, they just claim every photo of a globular Earth was either distorted by a fisheye lens or faked. They also throw out things that are true but have perfectly reasonable explanations, such as there being no direct flights across the South Pole from Chile to New Zealand, that large bodies of water don't wobble due to spinning, or that it is impossible to see the curve of the Earth at the height commercial airlines are allowed to fly at. Indeed, long lists of such proofs of the earth are the lingua franca of the movement, demanding enormous time and effort to debunk. Hence, few people doing it. Beyond that, the bigger a flat disk is, the more distorted the gravity becomes away from its center. Which is why galaxies are flat with spiral arms. On a flat Earth, weather and daytime would function totally differently because of distorted gravity. Many flat earthers claim that gravity itself is also a hoax. And the flat earth is accelerating upwards, propelled by universal acceleration. This is not a concept that has ever been proven to be possible, but it's central to flat earth and is the only thing that would explain why the sun rises and sets over the flat earth, or why the stars change their positions. Some flat earthers seem to understand how little evidence there is in favor of their argument and are less interested in trying to trash out the intricacies of things like why the Earth would be the only flat planet in the solar system, and are more interested in simply questioning everything around them. Indeed, the flat Earth beliefs are almost entirely intertwined with conspiracy theory beliefs as a whole, which is consistent with established research showing that if you believe one conspiracy theory, you are likely to believe others. Believers spend as much of their online time talking about waking up and doing research in general as they do about the earth in particular. They distrust scientific authorities, governments, and popular figures who tells us to assume the earth is round. They put their faith in their senses. their biases and what they want to be true rather than what others tell them. And there's a nasty strain of anti Semitism in the flat earth movement, like there is in almost every moderately popular conspiracy theory. In the end, any time spent in the flat earth community reveals that it's hard to tell who truly believes it, who's just there for laughs, and who will believe any conspiracy theory put in front of them as long as it implicates the powers that be. Fake Earth, says this photograph. Here's a flat earther, and it says here the Flat Earth Conference in Denver, November 2018. The Flat Earth movement has grown rapidly in popularity since 2015. Thank you so much, girls and boys, for being back there supporting this channel. Thank you for all your likes and comments, and I'll see you tomorrow.